We speak to SABC News International Editor Sophie Mokoena. Thank you so much for making time for us, and good morning. Starting off with what happened, and now also looking at the reaction from the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, from the U.S. Why would the U.S. be interested in what happens here?
Well, U.S., you know very well, they have what they call AFRICOM. AFRICOM, these are barracks, or one can say places where they have bases on the continent, and you have soldiers who are assisting in terms of ensuring that there's peace in those particular areas. For example, you know that in the southern region you have them in Botswana, but also they are assisting currently with some technical expertise in relation to the problem in Cabo Delgado. But they are really big in the Sahel region and also in East Africa because of the insurgents in Somalia. Now, you know that the Sahel region, the West Africa region in particular, has experienced lots and lots of instability, and many countries now under military rule. You talk about Mali, you talk about Burkina Faso, you talk about Guinea-Conakry. Now, you had mainly foreign forces in that region, the Sahel region, because of the terrorism. And now America was also involved in assisting to combat terror in those areas, the insurgents. This country, Niger, was very sympathetic to the Western powers. In other words, the foreign forces who were there in the Sahel region assisting to maintain peace in that region were really relying on Niger in terms of their operations. Now you have this problem where there's a growing discontent in that region in relation to the foreign forces. You know that Mali has just announced that they are doing away with French as the official language. They've expelled the French forces, the Germans, and many other foreign forces. Now, Niger was the only country that is more sympathetic. Now, that is why America has got vested interest. But to really understand why America has vested interest, take a listen what the Brigadier General of AFRICOM, who was in South Africa yesterday, I spoke to before this coup, said about that West Africa and this operation of AFRICOM on the continent. That will give you a sense why the Secretary of State issued that kind of a statement. It was a coincidence yesterday. I spoke to her. She was here at the SABC. We did a comprehensive interview about AFRICOM, but she did touch on the challenges of security in West Africa. Let's take a listen.
And right now I'm thinking of West Africa in particular. And as we look at the spread of the al-Qaeda affiliate, JNM, it's very concerning. It started in northern Mali and is now spreading into Burkina Faso and will likely spread further. And so what we like to do at AFRICOM is to visit those governments and the security forces and help them, assist them with what does a counter-VEO, violent extremist organization, strategy look like. And it is not just a defense or military solution. And I think that's very important. So when someone asks us, well, what is the role of Africa Command? I say it's bringing whole of government and bringing regional solutions to our African partners when asked.
And then at the same time, the neighboring country of Niger, Mali, we've just seen now that the US there also have placed sanctions on some of the military officials. What does this all mean then for the ECOWAS region?
It's quite unstable right now. And unfortunately, you have the chair currently, it's Nigeria, and the president of Nigeria. You know, he's also facing a lot of pressure in his country in terms of how the election panned out, in terms of the results. Some questioning the credibility of the elections. He issued a strong statement yesterday, but already when you read the reaction to that statement, people were already saying, you yourself, you are not legitimate. And therefore, this time around, ECOWAS is not as strong as the ECOWAS that we are used to. You'd recall when there were challenges in the region previously, they were quick to react and to respond, and there was that credibility because those who were speaking at that time, who were leading the regional body, had credibility. But right now, it's on a very shaky ground. I mean, the same with the AU. AU has issued a statement. The commissioner is currently in St. Petersburg at the Russia-Africa summit. But unfortunately, who will listen to the AU when they couldn't even resolve, or they can't even resolve the problem in Sudan? And now you have Niger. So we have regressed as a continent in terms of peace and security. So it speaks to the current leadership we have on the continent in terms of ensuring that you do away with such activities. You know that there was a period where the issue of coups were almost very, very few stories, or it didn't happen at the rate it's happening right now. So as a continent, for me, I must say I'm very despondent. We have really, really regressed.
What's known about the whereabouts of President Bazoum, and what interventions could there possibly be?
Well, the ECOWAS, including the AU, have called on the soldiers to release him. We don't know whether they will do that. It's not clear where he is now. Yesterday, someone was communicating, giving an impression that he's still in control. But at that moment, it was clear that it is somebody who is not there, who doesn't even have a direct contact with him. I'm surprised that the Secretary of State of the United States of America, Antony Blinken, is saying that he was able to speak to him yesterday. But his people, the office, couldn't even get hold of him because he was trapped in that palace and it was surrounded by the presidential guard. Because remember, it is the presidential guard that started this whole thing, and the soldiers then threatened that they will kill the presidential guard. But this morning we wake up that at night the military took over, and the argument that they are saying it's because of the poor social economic condition, and people, the nation has been disgruntled, or there was discomfort for the past few months, and he was not acting, and the presidential guard took this action, and they have decided to come in now as the military. So as we speak, you have Mali, Guinea-Conakry, Burkina Faso, and Niger under military rule. And Mali, Guinea-Conakry, and Burkina Faso, the leaders are currently in St. Petersburg. When they arrived wearing military fatigue.
I was actually about to say that all of this is happening while you have a number of the heads of states and governments on the continent being in St. Petersburg for the Russia-Africa summit. And also one of the points, especially when it comes to Mali and the sanction against those three officials, was about the influence that they have allowed for the Wagner group to play within Mali. What conversation would be happening at St. Petersburg?
Well, at St. Petersburg, this is President Putin's show. This is President Putin's show. He is going to demonstrate to the West, his enemies, that he's got friends. And those friends, majority are on the continent. Secondly, he is going to demonstrate that you can't stop the unipolar world. It's happening right now. And three, he is going to demonstrate that Russia is still one of the most powerful forces when coming to nuclear capabilities. And we know that he has invited so many people. You know, if I can tell you how many South Africans are right in Russia, in St. Petersburg, as we speak now, not just the government delegation. You can imagine other countries, the journalists from the continent, quite a huge contingent of journalists. And therefore, it's going to be President Putin's show. And now you have these characters. For example, the president of Mali, when he arrived, he was wearing military fatigue. The same with the leader of Burkina Faso. So you can see that demonstrating military might. And you are correct. Wagner has announced that they will be going to Africa, and clearly it's such countries where you will have them in their numbers, and it will be easy for them to move from Mali to Niger if they are called to do so. They are already in Central African Republic, even commanding the riches of that country, the mines, and therefore we are in a very difficult situation as a continent. And my argument again, I blame the leadership, the current leadership. it looks like they are not aware what is happening on the continent right now. We will wake up, we will see more of these activities.
A quick final one. The West has encouraged African heads of states not to attend this Russia-African summit. The Kremlin has issued a statement in saying that the West is trying to sabotage Russia. What would the ramifications of this be, considering that there are African heads of states that have defied that call not to attend the summit?
These countries that went to the summit are countries who are determined to demonstrate their autonomy and independence. Secondly, some of them are relying on Russia. As you pointed out, the West Africa, those countries where you have these generals who are running those countries, and they have support, the military support from Russia. Now, with South Africa, you know South Africa has been clear that in terms of our foreign policy, it's peace, but very independent. And therefore, South Africa, it was expected South Africa will be there too. The president, as part of the 7 heads of state and government leaders who went to Kyiv and also to St. Petersburg, will be continuing with that meeting. And lastly, the president would like to continue with President Putin bilateral in terms of preparations for BRICS, even though President Putin will not be in South Africa, but he is going to participate virtually. And therefore, you still have those discussions. But Kenya is not there. Yes, he is saying, William Ruto, because he made an announcement, you recall, when he was addressing the Pan-African Parliament, that we don't have to all go to this Russia-Africa summit, Japan
China summit, Africa
so
summit.
let the continent and the regional chair of these regions on the continent represent us. But I don't think it's that.
Okay.
It's more of the divisions that are there, subtle, on the continent in terms of some sympathetic to Ukraine, others really clearly with Russia.
Okay. Thank you so much for your time. Sophie Mokoena, SABC News International News Editor there.